Eric Lieberman.
Good morning, how are you?
Hi, good morning,
Good to see you. How you doing?
Good, good.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning.
All right. Thanks very much for participating.
Pleasure to meet you, Secretary. Nice to meet you.
Eric, good to see you. Thanks. Very good.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
I think we ought to flip a coin now or something, right? We've been all these handshakes.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Certainly want to welcome everybody to the USDA for the fifth and final in a series of competition workshops held jointly by the USDA and the Department of Justice to explore the appropriate role for antitrust and regulatory enforcement in American agriculture. I want to welcome the panelists who I will introduce in a few minutes, and my good friend the Attorney General, who I will also introduce in just a second. In my travels across the country, I've heard from producers who are concerned about the future of American agriculture. In these workshops, we've been looking at a wide range of issues regarding competition in agriculture, and today we look at the dynamics and the interplay between each segment of the food marketing chain, margins in the livestock, poultry, and dairy industries, and issues in the retailing sector. The Obama administration is committed to being the most open and transparent in history, which is why we look forward to this dialogue with a diverse group of stakeholders regarding the agricultural marketplace. I want to welcome all of you to this workshop and to this hearing. Today we intend to focus on a number of issues. We will explore and better understand how livestock and other agricultural commodities move through our system and the dynamics and challenges within each segment of the food marketing chain. We hope to explore margins in the livestock, poultry, and dairy industries. And lastly, we will focus on the potential implications of consolidation in our retailing sector. I want to say these workshops have been very beneficial to me and to USDA in helping us understand the issues that are of most concern and deserve close attention. I acknowledge that the issue of agricultural competition is extremely complex. The ever-changing nature of the sector suggests the need to ask questions and shed light on issues that frankly have not seen much light in many years. President Obama has provided a clear direction. The government should be open and transparent, which is what these workshops are designed to do and be. We want to, and we've had a public dialogue on these issues. We've held workshops across the country to explore the appropriate role of antitrust and regulatory enforcement. In March, we held a workshop on seed concentration and hog market issues in Ankeny, Iowa. In May, we traveled to Normal, Alabama to discuss poultry issues. In June, we discussed dairy issues in Madison, Wisconsin. And in August, we explored competition in livestock markets in Fort Collins, Colorado. In these workshops and my travels across the country, a number of themes have emerged. Producers want to have or maintain marketing options. They want transparency. They want access to markets. They have fewer buyers with whom to do business, and they struggle with debt and face challenges accessing capital. And lastly, they just want to be treated fairly and with respect. Most importantly of all, they care about the future of agriculture and want it to succeed, which is why we've seen such an overwhelming response and attendance at these workshops. I, for one, am optimistic about the future of agriculture, and I think our best days are indeed ahead. For this to happen, we simply need to ask the right questions and not ignore warning signs. And there are warning signs that we should consider. America's mid-sized farms are barely profitable, and not always profitable enough to sustain a family. At the Iowa workshop, Jim Foster, a pork producer from Missouri, summarized his concerns as follows. He said, "My concern is not for me, but for my kids and grandkids. Make sure they can pursue the American dream as my wife and I have." He compared what he saw driving through the rural roads of Iowa and Missouri in the 1960s to today. "I saw home-built hog shelters and lots of rolling hills with sows with new litters. I saw barns across Iowa with concrete pads out front with 500 50 to 100 calves on feed. I saw veterinarians at work with their catch chute, feed trucks delivering feed, implement dealers delivering a new manure spreader or a feed grinder. Today, he sees very little human activity around what was once a thriving economic model. We all realize that agriculture can't be exactly like it was 40 years ago, but the warning signs shouldn't be ignored either. In the past 40 years, the United States has lost 800,000 farmers and ranchers, and our remaining farmers are aging. From 2002 to 2007, the average age of a farmer increased from 55 to 57 years, and the number of farmers aged 75 years or older increased by 20% over the same period, while the number of operators under 25 years of age decreased by 30%. More than half of our rural counties, based on the 2000 census, lost population. At today's workshop, we will ask more questions. We'll explore more into margins and why the retail value to producers is shifting away from them and what that all means. In 2009, a hog producer received 24.5% of the retail value of a hog, and it was over double this percentage, nearly 50%, in 1980. Last year, 13.6% went to the packer and 61.9% went to the retailer. A cattle producer gets 42.5% of the retail value of a steer in 2009, which compares to 62% in 1980. Last year, 8.5% went to the packer and 49% went to the retailer. Today, we'll also explore what effects, if any, retail consolidation has had on the marketplace across all marketing sectors. And there are warning signs to pay attention to there as well. The four largest retailers account for 37% of U.S. grocery store sales in 2009, compared to 34% in 2004, 28% in 1999, and 17% in 1994. And we know that concentration can be much higher in certain regions of the country. There can usually be an explanation as some aspects of these complex issues, but we must also ask, if everything is fine, why aren't we seeing more young people getting into agriculture, and why are people leaving our rural counties? At USDA, we take these warning signs very seriously and have taken a number of steps to assist producers in rural communities. The USDA and the Department of Justice have established the Agricultural Competition Joint Task Force to explore new opportunities for harnessing each other's expertise and improving enforcement of laws designed to produce and protect producers. In particular, USDA and the Department of Justice have established a new process to handle complaints for unfair and deceptive practices in the poultry industry to more effectively and timely resolve cases, something we feel will further facilitate addressing concerns we heard at the Alabama workshop. Enforcement of the Packers and Stockyards Act was mentioned many times at the workshops. And in the past few years, the President has increased GIPSA's budget to improve enforcement over unfair and deceptive practices in the marketplace. And the Department is hiring new attorneys and field investigators to handle complex competition investigations and other violations. The USDA's Grain Inspection, Packers and Stockyards Administration, GIPSA, I know proposed a rule last summer for fairness in the marketing of livestock and poultry. We know it has sparked considerable interest and discussion. And now we have the public comments, some of which we heard at the Colorado workshop. We will begin in earnest and in good faith to process these comments and draft a rule that we believe will be workable, feasible, and common sense. In January, we put into effect a final rule to establish basic fairness for poultry contracts, and in particular to ensure that producers no longer have contracts arbitrarily canceled without notice. This resolved a problem that had concerned poultry farmers for many years and was frequently mentioned during our Alabama workshop. I'm looking forward to the findings and recommendations of the Dairy Industry Advisory Committee that I appointed to review the issue of milk price volatility and dairy farmer profitability, issues that were very important to participants at the workshop in Wisconsin. The full committee report will be delivered early next year. In the meantime, we issued $270 million in payments under the Dairy Economic Loss Assistance Program and $930 million under the Milk Income Loss Contract Program, while we acquired 114 million pounds of cheese. USDA has worked hard in these tricky times to support agricultural producers of every size and type, and we're helping American producers by promoting exports abroad, this year we will have a record year in ag exports, and by supporting domestic and local regional food systems. We're working to help producers with access to markets in rural communities with investment in rural broadband access. We're promoting the use of agricultural products and waste for use in the production of renewable energy in communities across the country. And we're helping farmers and landowners capitalize on new income opportunities from ecosystem markets that reward them for taking care of the environment. So you can see we have been busy in addressing the challenges that exist in agriculture and recognize that some would like us to do more and some would like us to do less. We want to focus on doing what is right, and these workshops will further inform our work that we do every day. It is our hope that the dialogue we've started extends beyond this last workshop and continues around the kitchen tables and coffee shops at academic institutions all across the country. Government may not have all the solutions to these problems, but together we can continue exploring ways to address the challenges that indeed exist. Again, I want to thank you for attending. I want to thank the panelists for their willingness to participate in this workshop. All of the panelists and all who have attended these workshops are owed a debt of gratitude. And I want to thank the institutions from across the country that were kind enough to allow us to use their facilities to hold these workshops. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to Attorney General Eric Holder for his comments. I want to welcome him to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Mr. Attorney General, you are welcome all the time at USDA. I'm not sure, but you may be the first Attorney General in the history of the USDA to come to USDA to discuss issues of competition in this type of forum. And I want to acknowledge the impressive career that our Attorney General has. He served in public practice as a U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, as Associate Judge of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, and as Deputy Attorney General. He has worked to investigate and prosecute official corruption on the local, state, and federal levels, and he's fully invested in strong enforcement of our nation's antitrust laws to advance the interest of justice on behalf of the American people. And I would want to say publicly to the Attorney General, I want to thank him and his staff not only for their commitment to these workshops, but also for your willingness to work with us to try to resolve outstanding civil rights claims against this department. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Attorney General, Eric Holder.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. It's a pleasure to be here at the Department of Agriculture, and I thank you all for joining us. I know that many of you have traveled a great distance to be here today. Probably you have left warmer climates to come to Washington, and I thank you for that. And the perspectives that you are bringing from the Mississippi Delta and South Dakota, from Connecticut, California, and communities in between will be critical to today's discussion. Now, I'd really like to figure out a way in which I can get one of those hats. This is the last time I'm going to have a chance. I see these guys all the time with these really nice hats and those good T-shirts. So at the end of my remarks, if I could meet with you all, we could maybe discuss a way in which I could, I'm from New York. I don't have a hat like that or a T-shirt like that. But you all represent many different regions, areas of expertise and positions in the agriculture supply chain. And you represent nearly every sector of one of our nation's oldest and most critical industries. Regardless of your vantage point, as we turn our attention to pricing margins at all levels of the agriculture industry, including the retail sector, I have really no doubt that this workshop, like the previous four that we have held this year, will provide important learning opportunities for all of us. Now, before we get started, I want to thank Secretary Vilsack and his team for hosting us and for their partnership in conducting this workshop series. I also want to recognize the outstanding efforts of Assistant Attorney General Christine Varney and the Justice Department's Antitrust Division. At each workshop, I have been impressed with the division's work in making the vision of these conversations a reality. And now that we find ourselves at the final workshop, it is clear that their contributions are paying off. We've learned a tremendous amount from farmers and producers and from industry experts as well as experts. And I have every expectation that the fruits of this workshop series will benefit the agriculture industry for years to come. Now, over the last 9 months, we have discussed everything, as the Secretary indicated, from vertical integration and dairy prices to the implications of the Packards and Stockyards Act and leading poultry industry challenges. Secretary Vilsack and I have had the chance to hear directly from hardworking farmers and producers, business professionals, economists, as well as elected officials. And the impact that these conversations has had on our thinking and on the enforcement strategies that we are in the process of developing has been, I think, profound. Of course, we know that antitrust enforcement actions will not solve every problem. We know that. But because of the insights that you have provided, when the circumstances warrant legal intervention, I believe that we will be better prepared to take the steps necessary to ensure a fair and competitive agricultural marketplace, both for producers as well as consumers. Now, what's been clear throughout this workshop series and in the thousands of public comments that we have received over the past year, and there have been thousands, is that America's farmers and producers work extremely hard, and they want to keep working hard, and they're not asking for a handout. What they want is a level playing field, nothing more and nothing less. Now, that means that they want market transparency, they want market access, and they want market fairness. And in my view, in Secretary Vilsack's view, and in President Obama's view, that's exactly what they deserve. Vigorous and appropriate enforcement is an essential component of our commitment to ensuring market fairness and robust competition. Now, in addition to this workshop series, our commitment has resulted in a joint task force between the Departments of Justice and Agriculture that is focusing on agriculture markets and industry issues. And it has resulted in a simple and accessible online submission process for reporting concerns and complaints. That process is outlined on the Department of Justice's website, and I urge all of you to utilize it to keep us informed of any complaints that you may have about unfair or deceptive practices. I also want to be clear about something. The critical channel of communication that we have opened this past year, as the Secretary has indicated, will remain open, and the Departments of Justice and Agriculture will continue working in close coordination to address your concerns and to ensure fairness and opportunity for America's farmers, producers, and agriculture industry. I'm really proud that collaboration between our two agencies has never been stronger, and that this new level of cooperation is driving meaningful, measurable progress. Just last week, our joint efforts to resolve the long-running discrimination lawsuits reached a new level with the House passage of the Claims Settlement Act. This legislation represents, I think, an historic step in ensuring that farmers who faced discrimination by their government finally receive the justice that they deserve. It also plants the seeds for a transformed relationship between the federal government and the many Americans who rely on a fair and effective claims process. Now, while I'm proud of this and all that has been achieved this year, I recognize that we still have further to go. After workshops on seed, poultry, dairy, and livestock issues, today we turn our attention to a matter that really cuts across all facets of the agriculture industry: pricing margins. Now, I understand that this issue, like many of the others that we have encountered, is nuanced, that it is not black or white. I realize that when farmers don't receive their fair share, it can pose a serious threat to industry sustainability. And to ensure a fair and competitive agricultural marketplace for farmers, producers, and consumers alike, I know that pricing margins must be more fully understood. So I really look forward to a candid, informative conversation today and to further discussions in the weeks and in the months ahead. These workshops have marked an important and, I think, unprecedented chapter in public-private collaboration. And although this is the last workshop, it is not the final chapter. As our conversations carry forward, I expect that our enforcement efforts will continue to be sharpened and will continue to be strengthened. And I'm confident that our nation will remain a great place to do business. So I thank you all once again for your participation and for your commitment to the goals that we share: justice, fairness, and opportunity for all. Thank you.